Where you go?
Wait. Is Cynthia coming?
No. Okay. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Howell Township Mayor and Council's public participation meeting. It's November 21st. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would ask that everyone please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask that everyone just please remain standing for a moment. Silent observation of our troops who are defending this country across the globe. And in particular, there was a terrible bus accident today in Alabama, school bus, where several children unfortunately have lost their lives, a horrific accident. At this time of year, as would be the case at any time of the year, important that we remember those families and all that they're suffering through right now. Please keep them in our prayers. Thank you. Mr. Tripodi, would you please read the opening statement and call the roll?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this public participation meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on December 21st, 2005, by the faxing of a copy of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on December 21st, 2005, by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on December 21st, 2005. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 1727.
Roll call, please. I'm sorry.
In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room, to the rear they are to your immediate left, immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room and the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Here.
Mr. Showmaker?
Ms. Showmaker called, and she will not be with us tonight. She got stuck at work, and unfortunately, she won't be able to make it tonight. However, she wanted me to wish everyone out there a very happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Tabasco?
Present.
Mr. Walsh?
Present.
Mayor DeBella?
Here. Before we begin our business, I'd like to welcome Councilwoman-elect Ms. Dalton, Angela Dalton. Welcome to the dais tonight, as has been tradition for many, many years in Howell Township. Those elected in November are greeted and extended courtesies to join the council immediately to assist in the transition. I understand Mr. Howell is ill and is not able to be here tonight. I'm sure that he'll be with us next week. So welcome, Ms. Dalton.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Chernetsky, I understand that we don't have 5A on this evening, the farmland buffer issue. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Since we have a late agenda, we're going to get to the hearing of citizens in a minute. We haven't had a meeting in a couple of weeks, and members of the council had asked for a few minutes to make some comments. Mr. Malave, we'll start with you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to congratulate Councilman Walsh and council members-elect Angela Thornton and Mike Howell on their great victory. They've been elected to serve this community, and I am confident that they will do so with dignity and professionalism and represent and serve all of the residents of this community. I extend myself to them in the event that the need arises. In case you need to choose to reach out to me, I'll be more than happy to help in any way I can. So congratulations again. I also want to thank Ed Skibicki and Mauro Reculia for their willingness to serve this community. I think that we need more Skibikis and more Reculias in this township, willing to step up to the plate and be good public servants. So I want to thank them and their families for their efforts. To my friend, our Deputy Mayor Pete Tabasco, I can't say enough about him. I also want to thank him for the years of service to this community.
You're welcome.
He has done so, in my opinion, with dignity and integrity. It's been a privilege, Pete, working with you side by side over the last 4 years, and I am honored to call you my friend. So I thank you also.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder and an invitation, the tree lighting ceremony for Howell Township is on Wednesday, December 6th. At 6:30, it starts right here at the municipal complex. There's going to be some light refreshments served, as always. I believe that Santa is making an appearance. And we'll be entertained by many groups, including the fabulous Howell High School Rebel Yell. They'll be here to entertain us with some Christmas carols, and the night will be capped with fireworks. So it's going to be a fun evening. Please come out. It's a free event, and the kids always have a great time. So December 6th, Wednesday at 6:30. Also, Mr. Mayor, if I'm allowed to make another comment.
Please.
At the last council meeting that we had, which was several weeks ago now, during the liquor license transfer hearings, I made some comments that I have reason to believe some people may have felt offended by them. When you speak passionately about an issue, sometimes things don't come out the way they were intended to. And I can assure you that at no time did I intend to offend anyone. Unfortunately, in today's climate, one must always be politically correct when speaking. And I want to apologize. I have no problem apologizing. You can ask my wife about that. To Mr. Dixon, who was the applicant, or is the applicant, and his family, and any other Howard Township resident that may have felt offended by some of my remarks made during that hearing, I sincerely apologize for that. I am a firm believer that when you say something or do something, whether intentionally or not, if it offends someone, one must apologize for it. And again, I do apologize to those people if at any time they felt offended by some of my remarks. However, I will not apologize for the way I casted my vote that evening. I did so solely with all of the information that was presented to me by the applicant himself, his attorney, by our township professionals, and by the input of the Howard Township residents. Again, if anyone felt offended, I sincerely apologize. Finally, I want to wish everyone out there a very, very happy and safe Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Malave. Mr. Deputy Mayor Tabasco, if you have anything, we'll go right down.
Okay. I didn't actually come with any formal comments tonight. I will also acknowledge what actually happened since our last meeting. I congratulate Bobby and Angela and Mike once again. And I do want to thank once again, and people who have seen me out in the public have heard me say this 100 million times the last couple of weeks, but I do want to thank once again my friend Juan here. He and I have served together the last 4 years, and I do consider him a very good friend. And I wish you the best, Juan, as we go into the next part of our lives. I'll keep it really brief since I have spoken about this quite a bit the last couple of weeks. We do have a tremendously great holiday coming in just a couple of days, Thanksgiving, which has always been my favorite holiday. So I would just ask everybody to go out there and spend it with your loved ones, with your families, and remember what you have a lot to be thankful for. And even though, there was an election defeat for me just very recently, I have a lot in my life, too, to be thankful for. So, again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Congratulations, Angela, Mike, and Bobby.
Mr. Walsh, you have any comments?
Good evening, everybody. Without saying, I'm glad the election's over. A nice rest is needed for all, I believe. It's a long, drawn-out process, and I think the town benefits whenever as many people as did participated. Between the debate and everything that goes on, I believe it opens a lot of people's eyes to what's going on in the township. I think that's very important because knowledge is king. I'd like to thank Pete, Mauro Kuglia, and Ed Skibicki. Anybody with the willingness to serve, like they had a willingness, deserves to be commended. I mean, there's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of strain on your family and your personal lives. So I do want to thank them. I wish them all the best. Me and Pete have been friends a long time. Sometimes you may not know it when we're up here, but me and Pete have been friends a long time. Some little things about the town I'd like to bring up. I really like to congratulate the Howell High School football team for a big victory in the state playoffs last week. I want them to know that we're all behind them. I hope to go, but I believe that the next game is on a Tuesday at Rutgers Stadium. I believe we have a council meeting.
December 3 at 5 o'clock. I think it's Sunday. Yeah, Sunday night
They
at
could
5.
change the Sunday because they were thinking about having to put it to a Tuesday. I didn't want to miss a council meeting, but for those Howell Rebels, I might have had to have considered it. I hope you all would have understood.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock, December 3 at the Rutgers Stadium.
December 3rd at 5 o'clock. Okay, we'll be there. I have spoken to some people over at the high school, and we're going to see about getting buses together so that the town can go up as a community, get 6 or 7 busloads of people to go up to Rutgers Stadium to root on the Rebels and the quest for a state title. I think it would be a first in Howell Township. It's a very good thing. I've been in a lot of the games, and it's been a joy out there. I'd also like to thank my good friend Sergeant Chris Hill and 20 other members of Howell Township, some of the police department, the PAL. My wife and my lovely daughter they all went down to New Orleans again to build the shelters for volunteers to come to build homes for Habitat for Humanity. They spent 4 days down there, and my wife and daughter said it's lucky I stayed home because they worked very hard. So, but I think it's very commendable, all the people that volunteer their time for this township. They went down there, I believe, 5 or 6 different times already, trying to help people that were hurt pretty badly down there. And I know my wife comes back every time with a different appreciation of how we live here and what's going on in Howell Township. We're very fortunate. On Thanksgiving, I would hope that we would all think of that, how fortunate we are, like Councilman Tabasco said. And we have a lot to be grateful for in this country of ours and this town we live in. I know I am. I pitch myself daily. Sometimes I let my son pitch me just to make sure I can feel it. But I'm very thankful for what's going on. And it's been an emotional couple months for me. I thank on all sides, because I believe at the end we're all on Howell's side. And I'm glad you're all here tonight, and God bless Howell Township.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I just have a couple of comments. I privately called Councilman Walsh and Ms. Dalton and Mr. Howell and congratulated them and certainly wished them well and echo the sentiments of Mr. Malave and Mr. Tabasco. The election is over. It's time to govern, and that's what we're here to do. I'm absolutely convinced that the process will continue to take its course as it has in this community and all over this country. When elections are over, people come together and they do the business of the people, and that's what we're gonna move toward. A couple of quick comments, just general updates. I had a group of Cub Scouts here tonight before the council meeting. They were earning their Community Service Award badge, and they discovered that the meetings were on television. They asked if I could televise the little meeting I had with them, and unfortunately, we could not do that, but I promised the boys from that pack, Aldridge School pack, the Cub Scouts, they were here with their parents, den mother, and it was quite a number of them, a great group of young fourth graders. I promised that I would announce the Cub Scout pack from the Aldridge School once the meeting actually started. So, terrific group of fourth graders. It's one of the fun things I get to do as mayor, is meet with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, you name it. A lot of them have projects that require them to meet with public officials, and that's one of the real neat things about the job, is to talk about government and community service. So my congratulations to the Cub Scouts at the Aldridge PAC. A couple of other general things. This morning, I had asked that we arrange a meeting with representatives from Lennar, Assemblyman Malone, and representatives from the Township. Mr. Chernietsky was there to talk about the continuing difficulties that residents in the reserve, if you will, that have experienced with their sewer and water rates. We did have that meeting this morning, and we made very good progress. I think he's here tonight. One of our residents, Mr. Nicastro, who's been representing the people from that neighborhood, attended that meeting. We actually got some nice cooperation out of Lennar, who appreciates the difficulty of the position that our residents are in, and we've received an acknowledgement from them that they're going to work to help find a solution so that the people who live there will be held harmless as it relates to cost. We have to further solicit some more help from the water company, but that has been an issue that has gained a lot of attention and really was a real tragedy in terms of what these people were asked to pay. So I want to thank Mr. Chernietsky for putting that together at our request from the last meeting. The other issue, 1/3 of the roads that were slated to be paved this year have been paved. The progress continues, the schedule continues, weather permitting, so 1/3 of the roads that were in our paving plan this year have actually been finished and have been paved. The other two things, Mr. Chernietsky, and we can maybe talk about it after public if we still have time, I want to get from you the schedule now that all the professional positions have been advertised. When are we going to workshop like we did last year, open them, review them, and begin to inventory all that? You can maybe hold that for a comment later. And then I also just want to have a brief conversation around the decisions we made with respect to the distribution of the ambulance that was in this current budget. I've had some conversations with people from the different first aid squads, and I want to talk about a different allocation of equipment based on volume and potentially revisiting that. So I'll maybe put those two things aside so we can get to the public. Did you have anything to report, Mr. Chernietsky?
Not at this time,
Okay,
but I can respond
terrific.
to,
All right, I don't think there's an official sign-in sheet that has been filled out tonight, so,
There is.
is there one, Mr. Okay, terrific. If your name is not on the sheet, just see someone on the end here, and we'll get it added if you'd like to be heard this evening. Thank you. Okay, first person, or persons, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph George from Tinton Falls Road. Sure. Welcome again, Mr. and Mrs. George. Nice to see you. After you make yourself comfortable, if you wouldn't mind, just for the record, introduce yourselves again with your address. Sure. And I believe you want to talk about, it says the groundwater contamination near where you live.
I don't know if yours is on. Again, we're Mr. and Mrs. Joseph
Could you just
George.
tilt up the, there you go. Pull it a little closer towards you if you don't mind. The system is pretty sensitive. It might catch your recording.
There we go.
Terrific. Thank you.
All right. Mr. and Mrs. Joseph George, 61 Tintons Falls Road.
Nice to see you again.
Same here.
We're here tonight because we'd like to know the status of the report that
Yep.
was scheduled from Brinkerhoff Engineering concerning the groundwater.
Yeah, Mr. Chernietsky was kind enough to mention to me tonight, right before the meeting started, that this was going to be a topic. Mr. Chernietsky, would you please give us an update?
Okay. Council will recall that back in September or October, Brinkerhoff was authorized to look into the origin of the surveys that the residents in the Tinton Falls neighborhood received by Poly One Corp., which is the commercial property that adjoins the neighborhood. The residents received these surveys actually back in May. Based on the letter I received actually this morning, which I'll be sharing with the residents of the neighborhood, we learned that the groundwater monitoring wells at the Poly 1 site identified the presence in the wells of various items that exceed drinking water standards in our state. As a result, a remediation project was started, but it was started years ago. As part of Poly 1's remediation agreement with the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, the state needs to determine if the contamination plume has spread vertically or horizontally, and they've directed Poly 1 to undertake a door-to-door well survey of private and commercial properties within 1,000 feet of the site. The goal of the survey is to determine whether or not off-site properties have been impacted. We don't know at this time whether they have been or not. Although the state's review is in progress, what I will be recommending to the Township Council for its consideration next week is that the environmental consultant be authorized to conduct what's called a full file review at the DEP. And a proposal and contract is being worked on, and we'll talk about that in closed session next week. I would note that at this point, as per my conversations with Brinkerhoff, it's important to remind residents that if they have received a survey, that they really ought to respond to it, because should it be necessary, that inventory of surveys within 1,000 foot of the site will be used to direct Poly 1 to perhaps do additional testing and sampling. Should the council decide to continue evaluating the project files, residents who are concerned about their drinking water are encouraged to have it tested by a certified laboratory. My office has reached out to the Monmouth County Health Department to see if any assistance could be offered in offsetting some of those costs perhaps, but we haven't heard a response yet.
I don't know that that necessarily is going to answer your question in terms of where we are with it. When, do we have a timeline, Mr. Chernetsky, on all this?
No, well, my understanding is that the DEP is still doing their review. The survey, again, just to summarize, was part of a remediation project that Poly 1 is undertaking. And this is part of that remediation process. What we want to do, and we have to have a contract in place with our consultant to do this, is what's called a full file review, meaning to go down to DEP and get all those files and review them ourselves. We have not done that. We just trying to figure out what the history of that property was at this point, and that's what we've completed.
And then next week, you're going to have us approve
A contract authorizing Brinkerhoff to continue.
Do we need to put that out to bid?
We do need to do that if it's above a certain dollar amount, but council can waive that if it's an emergent situation according to our own ordinances.
What's your recommendation?
That we waive that, because that would just delay it by a couple months, by at least a month.
Anyone on the council have a problem with that as he prepares for next week?
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
Does that answer your question, folks? So we're waiting for the DEP to finish the study they're in the midst of. Next week, we're going to likely approve a contract for the independent firm that does scientific and chemical work for the town, do its own independent investigation. And then, Mr. Chernetsky, once they start that, once this firm starts it on behalf of the township, how long will it take for them to come to collect the samples and come to their conclusions?
They're not going to collect samples, they're going to review the files.
Okay.
And I don't know where that's going to lead at this point.
You had mentioned to me that there is some benefit in people potentially having their water independently tested on their own.
Yes.
Could you elaborate for the benefit of Mr. and Mrs. George, your thoughts on that?
Well, the Brinkerhoff, that's their recommendation, that if you are concerned at this point, you should have your water tested by a certified laboratory. What we're trying to do is see if we can work with the county to come up with some sort of reduced price, maybe use their laboratories and see what resources they have that could maybe help offset that cost.
Could you, unless the council disagrees, maybe make contact with Mr. Paparazzi, who's the county's administrator, and make a formal request that we would ask that they help in deference to defraying the cost of these samples if someone wants to do it independently. Mr. Panziotto, looks like you had a comment?
Just to give a little bit more information, in a general sense, I've actually worked on the township. The township has had about 4 or 5 actual underground tanks, some of our leaded gas tanks, and some of our campus, in the campus, that have been removed and had leaked. And the typical protocol when you do have something where it's groundwater or soil contamination, you do have a monitoring well, or you put in a series of wells. And you take your soil, your soil and your water tests, and in some cases, they actually do exceed the limits, as happened in Poly 1's case. Typically, what happens in that remediation report, DEP will require a well search within 1,000 feet to see if there's a plume.
That's what those surveys were.
Right, so that's like the preliminary things. Then after that, they may require additional wells be installed by Poly 1 to see which direction it's moving in.
That's all been done this far.
Okay.
There's
And-
actually 30 wells that are located
Okay.
back there, and 25% of the wells have shown elevated contamination
Okay.
levels.
What they will also do is I'll monitor them periodically. It could be every 3 months, every 6
Right,
months.
it is every 3
To see
months.
what the concentrations are actually doing. So this
I
is a
have here-
process that's going to take some time. I don't know
I
how
have
familiar
here
you are
for
with
you the
it.
groundwater monitoring reports for 2005 and 2006. This has been ongoing, I think, since
I believe 1998.
98. And the DEP's been well aware of everything that's been going on over there. And also, the monitoring and testing that's been done by Poly 1 has not been to the standards set forth by the DEP to date.
Yeah, they keep coming back and telling them that it's not acceptable.
Right.
And
that
it's
was
all
in-
documented.
That was in the previous reports that we had provided to the manager, I think at the other meetings.
Yeah, at the
And
last meeting.
This is a new report that my wife just acquired from the DEP, because they've been very helpful with us. And this is the most recent survey, and we're growing concerned. It's 6 months since we've had the survey that was sent out.
From the DEP?
Well, it was from Poly 1 at the request of the DEP.
Right.
Right.
I think that's more than ample time for them to ascertain whether or not there's a problem with our domestic wells. Actually, the DEP has indicated that the survey says that they're close enough that there probably is a problem with the domestic wells.
Excuse me, Mr. George, would you just speak closer into the microphone?
Certainly, I'm sorry.
Your mic's working.
Mr. George, is there a red button on in front of the mic you're talking to?
It is.
Yes.
It
It
is,
is.
okay. You just have to probably pull a little closer.
There we go. I don't know, I guess, reading these reports and seeing that 25% of them are showing high or elevated groundwater contamination levels, and this report also speaks to the fact that the plumes are indeed moving. There's contamination in the upper as well as the deep aquifer.
Down as
And-
far as 384 feet, I believe.
And something else that I've been able to ascertain from these reports, the monitoring wells that were sunk around this facility were sunk close to the facility and their loading areas where they transferred the chemicals. This report also provides for a history of the facility and how it operates, and it indicates that there's a laboratory inside that facility. That facility's wastewater is handled by a septic system. So any of the drainage from the laboratory as well as the floor drains in the facility would go to this system. And this system is approximately 11,000 square feet, located less than 1,000 feet from a domestic well. The on-site septic system has no monitoring wells within 200 or 300 feet of it.
There's
And
topographical maps in here showing that.
I think what we're looking for is for the people in the community here to reach out to probably the state level, the DEP, to find out what they're doing to correct this issue. It seems like it's been ongoing for a considerable amount of time, and not much is being done about it.
Yeah, it seems
And-
like they just keep going back and forth. That the DEP just keeps telling them that
Right.
it's not acceptable, this is what you need to do.
We're hoping that if some people like yourselves can get involved and show a concern, that they'll move a little quicker than they will for folks like ourselves.
Two things, Mr. Chernetsky or Mr. Gannon. Can we, Assemblyman Malone has been very helpful on this recent issue with Lennar. Can we maybe contact his office and see if we can have a meeting here, invite Mr. and Mrs. Joseph, the reports, and see if we can get the attention of the DEP? This is not the first time that the DEP has sent mixed signals. I mean, the nightmares with Parkway Water and all of the misinformation or lack thereof that we got over a series of months is not a good track record, at least from my perspective, with the Department of Environmental Protection. And then can we we subcontract to the county, as most towns do, for the Board of Health. Can we see if we can get the Board of Health to go out and do their own independent inspection? I mean, they've done this with other wells in other parts of the community. Can we call and have the County Board of Health go out there right away and determine if there's something they can do in addition to getting some attention at the DEP's level? Is that appropriate next steps?
Who would you like to be on that meeting?
I think you need to be in the meeting and poll the council to see which one of us might be available whenever the meeting can be put together during the daytime.
Okay.
That's all. Whichever one of us can go, should go. And we'll give-
Respectfully, I have reservations about the County Board of Health, because like you had said, they are the ones that represent our township as far as the health department goes. They've been copied on all of this information for the duration of this problem, and yet, when I came to the meeting 2 meetings ago and informed you folks about this, you had no clue about what was happening. So I'm
We're assuming
concerned as to
that-
how forthright or forthcoming they're going to be with trying to help our issues here.
Right.
Well, we're gonna have to light a fire on them because we pay them.
I mean, we're assuming
provide
that they
service.
dropped the ball somewhere here.
See, a lot of times what happens is when the DEP gets involved, most other authorities give deference to them as the controlling authority with the greatest amount of
Understand.
latitude. So I can't make excuses for what the county did or didn't do, but we need to get them involved. And if we're not
Absolutely, that's why
satisfied,
we brought it to your attention.
absolutely, and if we're not satisfied with the service that they're giving us as a paying customer, we're entitled to let them know and get them on the scene tomorrow.
Mayor, one of the things that we've been trying to do through the consultant for Poly One is to get some of the detailed site maps, sent to us before we, but at this point, what we're going to be doing is...
I have those.
Yeah,
But
we have
we
them all.
want to see what's officially at the state, and that's the next step, is to look at that file so we understand exactly what's starting to show in terms of any sort of patterns or progress, and we think that the file would start to reveal that, just looking at it as a whole.
Is there anything else that we could be doing at this moment? Mr. Gannon, Mr. Tanicki, any suggestions for us?
I think at this point, you need facts.
I think the first thing to do is have Brinkerhoff do an independent review, and then possibly indicate to the mayor and council if in fact there are homes that possibly should be tested immediately to see if there's any problem. But, my experience, we have a number of them in Howell, but my experience in Monmouth and Ocean County, some of these Superfund sites, cleanups, they have a consent order to clean it up, but it takes years and years and years. So I think the idea would be to first have Brinkerhoff look at the entire file, put some type of monetary stops on it, and then look at the homes that possibly could be affected, which way the plume's going, and then my advice would be somehow get those wells tested as soon as possible.
All right, so the immediate next steps are, we're going to award this contract.
The DEP is not going to probably do it until they get the full report to see which way the plume's going, then they might take another year to get the wells tested, and then take remedial action. So if the mayor and council think it behooves us to move quicker, then maybe either with the county for a VO test or whatever, and have the homes that Brinkerhoff will say may be targeted. I mean, the wells could be perfectly clean, but if there's plumes, the plume has been moving, and at least the information we received tonight indicates it's down to a couple levels of the aquifer, then how deep are your wells, folks,
Most of the wells in our area are shallow. Our wells probably no more than 30 or 40 feet, but there are also deeper wells that have been recently driven on our block.
All right.
Some wells I know go to as much as 210 feet.
Okay. Is there irrigation wells in the area, or just, if anybody's got any irrigation wells?
No irrigation wells that I'm aware
That
of.
we know of.
Okay.
Well, then what I would suggest, unless the council disagrees, is we have Mr. Chernetsky contact the county, see if they can help arranging for testing at a discounted rate. We contact the Board of Health to let them know we expect them to be involved, to get out there and to provide us with some updates. Next week, we will hopefully pass the contract to get Brinkerhoff's scientists involved as quickly as possible. And I do think that we should, even if we don't have a lot of information to share yet, we should get to, whether it's Mr. Malone, Mr. Dancer, Mr. Singer, and ask for them to become aware of what's going on and to assist in them trying to prod along the DEP, let them know that they're involved, and solicit their help in having a meeting here for them to get whatever additional material they need. Does anyone have any concerns with that?
Now, I would like to add something to it. I mean, if we could, are there any ordinances we can put in place that could stop some of this from happening in the future? We seem to have one major issue with water in this town, one after the next in different areas. Is there anything we could do to prevent this in the future?
Well, not to make light of your question, but the bottom line is, most of these issues are from historic commercial sites that when they indicate that, well, all the residue and the waste went into a septic tank, everybody now says, well, you got to be crazy. But that was the state of the art back in 30, 40 years ago, and we're paying the price for it now, unfortunately. But we can look into some ordinances, but for the most part, I would assume that any commercial outlet would have to have hooked up to sewers that have a tertiary sewer treatment plant and that type of thing. So it's really not an issue with regard to any ongoing sites, although it may be possible that there's some sites that are in operation that are grandfathered in. But to answer your question, we can look into it, but most of these are as a result of the history of isolated commercial sites in Monmouth and Ocean County over the years that never were built or never performed in accordance with what today's standards would require. And we're paying the price for it now because these plumes, they could take 20, 30 years to move.
All right, but that's in this situation with Lennar Homes. Is there something we could do to prevent that from happening in the future?
Well, we are. In Lennar, we directed the manager about a month ago to craft an ordinance that requires all developers to have separate meters to distinguish sewer from water flow. And is that on target for our...
That is, as a matter of fact, I was told today that I'll be getting a draft.
Yeah, so we will correct that issue, and hopefully that'll be introduced at the December workshop.
That particular, we have a very full, yes, the December workshop.
Okay, December's workshop, so we'll be fixing that.
Well, I don't know if that'll give us enough time to adopt in this legislative year.
Okay.
But if not, then in January.
At least we can start workshopping it, and it can be introduced quickly.
Right.
Also, just, to add to issues such as industrial sites, what might have been zoned for industrial purposes before, zoning regulations weren't always really tight in terms of what you can or you can't do. And most communities have just been tightened up over the years in terms of industrial uses and specifying more clearly what can or can't be done on the site.
Mr. Walsh, I believe this speaks more towards reporting. Like this gentleman had just said, these things have occurred over a period of time, and it's something that has just happened. But there's monitoring that's going on by the DEP that's been going on for years with a lot of the sites in our community. I think the important part is for any of these sites that are actually a hazard, it needs to be reported back to the local government so that you folks are aware of what's going on in our town and can in turn make the citizens aware. I think that's where the ball got dropped with this whole problem that we have. We had no idea what was going on until we got a questionnaire, and that's when we directed it to your attention.
Right. And it's already 8 years in the making.
Well, then, so there's probably other sites in Howell Township.
If you
I would
care
hope
to
that we
check
will-
out the DEP's website, I think you'd be pretty amazed how many there are in Howell Township and how
Actually,
close
it's
they are.
EPA.
EPA, excuse
Maybe
me.
the final takeaway, Mr. Chernetsky, is since we don't get this information, can you maybe reach out to the DEP and request that they provide in writing to us any site that was former industrial, whatever the case may be, so that we can get it?
We can develop a map for you that shows you
I
where
can't hear
there's...
you. Hold on a second. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We could develop a map for you that shows you where all the Superfund sites are in the community.
Yeah, but some of these are not, like, I don't know, is theirs qualified as a Superfund site?
Or a brownfield site.
Okay.
We are listed on the EPA website
As
as
Superfund.
a site.
I don't know that they necessarily classify it as a
As
super.
that,
Superfund,
but
but
it's
it's
there.
Different classifications
That's right.
for all the levels of contamination and types of contamination.
Can you get
Right.
that for us, Mr. Chernetsky?
There are a number of databases, and so we'll go through
You'll pull
all
them
of them
up.
and
Okay.
categorize them for you.
All right, and then once we have the meeting set up during the daytime, if you'd let Mr. and Mrs. George know, so
Absolutely.
we can make arrangements for them to be here.
I'd be
Yes.
happy to
Thank
attend.
you.
Happy to
Yes.
help in any way that we can. I'd like to.
All right, we appreciate your help.
Mayor, if
Thank
I
you very
could just
much.
point out one more thing. Miss George has been extraordinary in her help to us in terms of communicating with the residents and getting the word out and communicating back to my office. So I
Thank
just
you.
want to thank her for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy
You too.
holiday.
Thank you.
Mr. Wayne, I may pronounce it wrong, Haratko? Good evening, Mr. Haratko. Welcome. Come on up, and when you get yourself comfortable, just please give us your name and address for the record. It says you want to talk about leaf pickup.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, on a lighter note.
Good evening.
Wayne, good evening. Wayne Haratko, I live at 3 Tamarack Street in Howell.
Nice to see you.
Okay, likewise. Really short here, and it's a light issue. I'm in Area 5 on a leaf pickup, which is slated for December the 26th to January 5th, 2007. We got neighbors that have been putting leaves out since October. There's a couple of safety factors involved in that, such as parking cars over dried leaves, sliding on dried leaves while there's kids on bikes. I was just wondering if the town, I mean, the program is fine, I have nothing with the program, but maybe like 2 weeks prior to your scheduled pickup to put the leaves out to the curb?
Mr. Chernetsky, you know how I feel about leaves, so I won't give you any of my personal views, but...
I mean, personally, I bag them myself, I don't wait for this program because, but...
Go ahead, Mr. Chernetsky.
Well, I would just say, we have 5 routes. We have 5 trucks assigned to 5 routes spread over, many, many miles of roads. So council has authorized a sixth truck for next year, and we've also started taking the leaves to much closer facilities, which saves us a great deal of time. So although it may not be necessarily visible to the residents, I think we are doing a little better than we were last year, according to my supervisors. But having said that, I'm going to ask Mr. Nunziato to talk about the stormwater management regs a little bit, and do they apply to us in terms of how long?
Can I just interrupt 1 minute?
Go right ahead, sir.
I don't have a problem with the program. I mean, I'm all for it. But the thing of it is, people put leaves out in October. Now, like I said, my zone is the 26th to the 7th, and I understand how it's a big area and, manpower and so forth. But if there's an ordinance, or if the people know you cannot put leaves out 2 weeks prior to the pickup, I think that'll alleviate the problem. I mean, my street is 30 feet wide. Got a neighbor across the street, I measured it tonight. He's got 6 feet of leaves off the curb, and the guy next to him, he's got 5 feet. It's ridiculous.
It's a good point, Mr. Chernetsky. You know our frustration and how long it takes to get them picked up, and unfortunately, there's not a whole hell of a lot we can do without increases to staff or what have you, but can we consider putting out something that says, if your leaf pickup isn't until December, don't leave them in the street at the end of September?
Well, the problem with that, unless we have an ordinance in place, it's not enforceable.
That's what I'm asking.
Well, I think that's what he's saying. Does it make sense? Do other towns do this from a best practices perspective? Can we provide the bags and ask people to put them somewhere else on their property, and then a week before or the week of, when the pickup is scheduled?
I actually bagged the guy next to me 12 bags.
You bagged it for him?
Yes, I did.
Can I give you my address?
No. I mean, it's an eyesore, number one, and there's no consideration for the people that live around it.
Mayor, I think the goal is for us ultimately to have a sufficient amount of routes in our town and a sufficient amount of vehicles so that this becomes less of an issue. I think if we try to do something by ordinance, my experience from other towns is you rue the day that you did it, because now it has to be enforced. And with weather patterns that change, rain days, it just becomes really unenforceable, and the staff's in a difficult position to enforce things that may appear unrealistic to many residents. So that's my advice, is that we simply step up that process and become really great at picking up leaves. And
All right, well,
Mr. Nunziato might, if you
Go ahead,
want to add
Mr.
to
You have
that.
anything you want to add, Mr. Nunziato?
Well, one of the struggles we've had year in and year out is the fact that you do have 5 areas spread over 5 or 6 weeks, and regardless, if you're the first section, the leaves are still in the trees. If you're the last section, they've been down for 2 or 3 months. So what we've tried to do is do a cursory pass through the section. And granted, the first sections, there may not be a lot of leaves out, so what we would try to do is go to some of the other sections that may be later in the schedule, and to try to go through them, because like you say, some people will put their leaves out in October, and you look at them for 2 months, and it does create, hazardous conditions.
Maybe what just the takeaway is, Mr. Chernetsky, we are looking to improve the process, but just maybe a general practice is, even if we don't make it an ordinance, we just put an announcement with the pickup schedule that says, to the extent that's possible, if you can bag them and not put them out until shortly before you're scheduled for the leaves to be picked up, that at least would do something. Fair enough?
That's
Okay, so
easy enough to
you'll
do.
talk about it with the DPW?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you very much.
appreciate
Everybody
your
have a nice
comments.
holiday.
You too, thank you. Next person is Mr. Chris O'Hearn. Mr. O'Hearn. Good evening, Mr. O'Hearn, welcome.
Good evening.
You make yourself comfortable, if you just for the record, please give us your name and address. It says you'd like to talk about the property reevaluation.
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Chris O'Hearn, and I live at 22 Hearth Court
Nice to see you,
in
sir.
Glen Arden. We've been residents here in Howell for over 16 years. And when they came through on the reevaluation of our property, which is a study I understand that's ongoing, they probably spent 37 seconds inside our house looking at it to determine its value. And they went through at a time when property prices were peaking. Now, Mr. Walsh, I know you and your independent slate said prominently that you would not raise property taxes, but that's not the same as property taxes going up because of a reevaluation. I think you said you would hold the line on property taxes.
We'll do everything we could to stabilize property taxes. I have nothing to do with the revaluation, sir.
I understand that, but that's just a different way of raising an individual's taxes that's lived here a long time. People that have came after us and bought properties for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, that was their choice. When we came, property was not that expensive. I don't know what our evaluation is going to wind up being, but since they did the survey at the peak of the housing market, I don't know that you could sell your house for whatever it is they're going to reevaluate it for. So, I just wonder about the value or the credibility of the survey, particularly when they spent 37 seconds inside our house trying to determine what its value was. The value of a house is determined by the people that want to buy it.
Mayor? Hold on one second, Mr. Chernetsky. I think Mr. Tabasco wanted to make a comment. Go ahead, Mr. Tabasco.
I happened to run into one of the gentlemen from the reval company actually at the League of Municipalities last week, and they are almost done in assessing or going through and getting the values for all the homes. What I'll tell you about any particular unit with regards to a neighborhood, there's the rule of substitution. So I hear what you're saying, that they were in your house for maybe 37 seconds, but that tells me that they probably were in a lot of houses like yours in that neighborhood. So let's go through the process real quickly here. There's this period of time where they go through the homes and then eventually get back to you and every other homeowner in town with what they think the value of your home is. What happens after that is there'll be a period of time where any individual homeowner can actually appeal, and that'll probably be in the spring. So if you, for example, think that your home was unfairly assessed, you have every right to come back and go through due process and appeal process next year, which will be before we as a council actually complete our budget, which takes about 6 months to do, as you have seen in previous years. When we do our budget, it usually takes from January to June, and it's based on spending that we agree to do or not. So technically, the reval really has nothing to do with the aggregate spending of the town. And I'll try to make this real simple. We spent $40 million last year, and unless we agree to spend more as a council, we'll still spend $40 million next year. So aggregately, the reval has nothing to do with taxes going up. Now,
I
on an individual...
understand that.
Let me just finish. I'll be done in 30 seconds, I promise. On an individual basis, yes, you can actually go up a little bit. Some people might come down a little bit, and some people will stay about the same, because you will be differently evaluated than what you may have been before. So I hope that addresses your question.
Well, I understand that very clearly, and that's my point. People that have been residents in this town for a long time, some people have been here 20, 25 years, their taxes are going to go up. And they're going to go up pretty significantly, even if you keep the spending the same. Even if you keep it at 40 million, the people that came in and bought houses at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, their taxes are going to go down. But it was their choice to come here and pay that amount of money. And they knew what the taxes were before they bought the house, hopefully. I mean, I can't imagine a property owner buying a house without knowing what the taxes are. So they knew, and that's a tacit agreement, that it was okay with them.
Let me then finish the whole equation then. It isn't just about Howell, it's about the 52 other towns in the county as well. There's 53 towns in Monmouth County. They all contribute to taxes that go towards county obligations as well. So it's called the equitable tax rate system, and whether we like it or not, it is a system that exists now. So if in Rumson, for example, they're evaluated at 100% of value and Howell's at 50% of value, we're supposed to be reassessed every 10 years to bring it back up to 100% of value, so that we're all fairly paying for county services too, and including the regional schools and other things. So it's not that, it's actually a little bit more complex than that, and that at the county level, the guy, Matt Clark, actually puts an equitable tax rate factor onto each town each year. So example, we're sitting at 50% of value right now, but he puts a multiplication factor in there when he calculates the taxes each year, so that we do still pay our fair share as compared to the other towns around the area. So it's not just the Howell piece to this, it's a whole county-based piece to it. It's actually mandated by the state, although the county does do the work for them.
Mayor?
Mr. Chinesky, go ahead.
If I may, really, the council's role at this point was, as a policy matter, to do this and how to go about doing it in terms of contractual issues, or, whether deciding not to do it and fight this in a court or something like that. It was before I got here. What I would like to suggest is that, to Mr. O'Hearn, is that I have the township's tax assessor contact you tomorrow, and then you can go over these issues with him point by point. And he's very familiar with these things. He can get into some of the trends, how things are going to be adjusted as a result of recent trends in the market, and he can talk to you about that offline. If you'd like me to arrange that, I'd be happy to.
Yes, I would appreciate that. Because the other point is that, unfortunately, right now, I'm living on a fixed income. And every price increase that comes along, whether it's in fuel or whether it's in taxes or groceries, has an effect on what I can do and what I can't do. And that's pretty annoying. The other question I have deals with tax liens. I understand that a premium can be paid when somebody is bidding on a tax lien, and I know that in Jackson Township, when they held their tax lien auction, there was like $650,000 paid in premiums. And when I asked what that was going to do, what that money was going to do, it was just going to sit there. It wasn't going to do anything, wasn't going to be invested, wasn't. My question is, how much does Howell have in tax lien premiums, and is it just sitting someplace doing nothing?
Well, the good news is we have been, because of our CFO's efforts, we have very few tax liens that we're not able to act on. And we've had a tax foreclosure attorney, actually, that has moved several cases along where we've actually collected monies and inherited property in a recent instance. Mr. Chernetsky or Mr. Gannon, are either of you aware, where are we in terms of some of the outstanding properties?
I think the question is more towards when they have the auction and people are buying the liens. Is that what?
That's
we're
correct.
assigning the liens?
Well, if that's the case, any of the dollars that are collected because of premium payments go back into the town's general cash revenues, I would suspect. I don't know if they have to sit in some special account or not. Do you know, Mr. Chernetsky, if any of those
I would
dollars?
indicate that what the tax collector does has to conform with state law in terms of keeping money aside for redemptions. It gets somewhat convoluted and complex.
We have Mr. O'Hearn's telephone number. When he speaks to Mr. Lenahan tomorrow, can we get him the answer to what happens? And I think all of us on the council would like maybe a brief memo. If there's something unique that has to happen with those funds that prohibits them from going into the general fund, we'd like to know what that is. All right?
Will do.
We've got your number here, Mr. O'Hearn. I'll give it to the manager, and we'll make sure that the assessor or the collector calls you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, sir. Mr. Magid, welcome, sir. Come on.
Good evening.
Mr. Magid, just as always, just please introduce yourself and tell us what you have for us.
My pleasure, that you could advise me of that very useful advice. I'm Ed Magid, I'm at 89 Mariners Cove. Okay. I've been in close touch with the manager of Howell Township, Tom Zinitsky, and he's been very attentive to my concerns. And in fact, I sent him a letter or two. I have several things. I sent him a letter on the 13th of November. I believe, Mr. DeBello, the mayor, you were on a copy of that.
Yes, sir.
Now, this little sketch here, I know I'm at a distance, shows the Manasquan River as it goes down to Bergenfield Road, past our houses. I have to say that a neighbor of mine, who's a lot younger and a lot more facile and so on, ran out and took some utterly horrendous pictures, of which Mr. Sinapsky, these are just copies, has the originals. Not only with trees right across the river, but a tremendous number of overgrowth or undergrowth, whatever you call it. And in fact, I'll just thumb through some here. They're all horrendous. Where it goes under Bergenville Road, the growth is down to about 2 feet across.
Burgerville.
Bergenville. I thank you. Now, 2 weeks ago, it rained for one day, very heavy. When it did, one day, not like a year ago, for 8 days, because of all this crud, trees, and everything else, not only did you have about 80 feet across of what normally you don't even see, the Manasquan River, but it had filled in a good part of, we have like a make-believe detention basin there at the end of Mariners Cove, and there was a lot of water in it. In fact, on that side of the street, the water from the storm sewers weren't flowing down, one day. So I've spoken with Mr. Zinetsky on this, and he told me that Mr. Ron Sanek, who's the emergency management person, will be in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers. Well, I informed Mr. Zinetsky that we're talking about immediately, and not what might be hopefully soon. I know that you asked me to inform the manager, so I have. I'm informing you now that if dollars are needed quickly in Howell Township, and according to the literature, we spend lots of money on different attorneys for different things. I'm not present company, but other attorneys, labor attorney, $500,000 or whatever. I think we better find the bucks to, I'm not asking for dredging Army Corps of Engineers. I'm asking for somebody to see to it, and I'm sure the manager will, that Ron Sanek, even though I know about leaf collection, we'll run down there, take a look, and hop to it. And by the way, for leaf collection, I don't have a problem, just to the back. Sure. It seems almost moronic for somebody with these blowers today, just blow it out in the street, to have to bag it. Have to bag it. If it can't be an ordinance, pretty please, with sugar and cream, bag it. Put it on the side of the house, keep it there, put it out when it's appropriate. And I had a lot of leaves. Okay, I'll go on to my next item. I want this taken care of right away. Secondly, when the planning board, October the 19th, put out the resolution as far as, what's required for the agreement in Postel Acres, item 4 said, and by the way, you have a copy of this also, I believe, Mr. Mayor, and also Barbara Kapstek. I'll read item 4. the applicant shall execute a developer's agreement with Howell Township Council concerning maintenance of the basin. Developer's agreement may require execution of interlocal agreement with Township of Freehold or any other mechanism deemed appropriate at Howell Township. I've talked several times with Mr. Ziniski, and at this point, we seem to be very much in the dark. Somebody from here should at least, if informally, talk to somebody in Freehold and find out what's being generated on this. Now, for the main thing in the evening, and again, won't be much time, had a long talk on telephone today after I got some facts from Chuck Newcomb, the planner. I got especially interested after I got the plan, about 40 pages, of the COA. And I have said to you before I had any thoughts about COA, that we better get a master plan which greatly leans towards higher ratables, meaning less units per acre. Well, after reading COA, I'm a lucky guy. Blood pressure didn't go up. Should have. I read all the statistics. I won't bother you repeating them, although I could have brought it and repeated them. You must know them. And never do I want to hear that they're shoveling it down on us. I know they're shoveling down on us from Trenton, welfare state, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. We have to take the action here. Because if you're going to not think about the size of the units, and every time there's 8, an affordable one pops in, and we just had this gentleman worried about taxes. Yes, everybody's worried about taxes, future. Not only that, we're a growing commercial area, and every time there's 25 people, and didn't even say whether it's part-time. I think that new grill that I'm more in favor of is going to have about 100 people. Boom. What does that mean? 4 more affordable houses? And through the years, there's no Nostradamus here, we'll probably grow immensely. So you now can start thinking very hard about what I hear you say about being concerned with the well-being of the residents in Howell Township in this way. This master plan that's gone through the planning board that you have said you have great confidence in, look it over some more, because you don't want me to read the statistics of what it means when you have 8 units per acre, and I specifically got from Chuck Newcomb what's the available vacant land. I'm not talking about what's already here. Or apartments. A lot of talk about apartments, garden apartments. I say I charge you now, when you get that master plan and you look it over, to do what's necessary faster than ever because of COA. And I want to tell you something else about senior citizens, which I'm all in favor of. Somebody here ought to get in touch with somebody in places like Marlboro, just informal talk, and find out, without having required by ordinance, maybe you can't, what do they do? So, and especially, of course, I've seen them in Homedale, so that senior citizens' ratables are what we call lavish and expensive. Better do some hard thinking, in particular because of COA, because we have to, and I said in a previous meeting, formulate a plan which has to be able to pass legally. That's why we have legal advice, so that we're not flat on our back when I see what's called farmland, which maybe we'll buy for the township, but maybe not, and it could zip over to small units, many of them, and boom, there's 8. Now, why is it so important for small units? Because the price is skyrocketing. This gentleman just said what's evaluated. More people will have to go to smaller units. And I have the figures. Again, I thank you, Mr. Zanetsky, who gave me the number of high school children and elementary school children in 4 streets, which are all townhouses in New Landing. Quite a few children, I'll tell you that. Nothing like that Rutgers thing we once heard about. You have that responsibility here.
Great.
And it's a responsibility for the importance of the future to see that you skillfully go through that master plan. And again, get in touch with any other township to see what they're doing, whether we can create ordinances or however it works, so we don't get totally killed by small ratables aside from affordable ratables. Take that very seriously.
Thanks for your comments, Mr. Mayor.
My pleasure, indeed.
All right. Mr. Robert Crawford. Welcome, Mr. Crawford. Nice to see you, Mr. Crawford. It says you'd like to talk about road conditions in the villages. Right. After you make yourself comfortable, if you wouldn't mind, just give us your name and home address for the record, please.
Okay. I'm Robert Crawford. I'm a resident of the Villages, 105A.
Nice to see you.
Ragley Hall. It's on a cul-de-sac. The road condition there is horrible. Not even going to talk about scanning water too much because you'll be hearing more and more about that, but my concern is I understand, and I'm new in the Villages, so you're seeing me for the first time tonight, and it won't be the last time because I like coming to council meetings.
That's great. Well, welcome. It's good to have you.
Okay. I'm concerned because one of my grandkids fell a couple of months ago because the road was uneven. And fortunately, she bounced right up, so she was okay. But I'm concerned about the road. I notice, and I have three of the trustees here who are probably wishing I'd shut up because that's their job to come here, but I'm too new yet, and I'm going to say what I want to say anyhow. Seems like the Howell Township is neglecting the side streets in the villages. They're only taking care of the main drag. I'm sure you got money in the budget to take care of road maintenance. I know because I come from a community, Freehold Borough I come from, where we have a budget also. And we budget so much for our road maintenance. And my concern is that you have to pay more attention to the villages and to the condition of the roads. We got over 1,000 people in the villages, almost all of them senior citizens, one here. And that's my concern. My concern is that something's got to be done. And I hope that when I walk away tonight, that it isn't just brushed aside.
Well, a couple of things.
If it's not, I'll be back.
Well, we can tell you, Mr. Crawford, a few things, and the trustees from the villages can tell you this. We had a meeting here in the township's municipal building a few months back, and there is an agreement that is being fulfilled, if you will, regarding the paving or setting funds aside for the main thoroughfare of the villages. There is an agreement between the town and the villages that goes back probably more than 20 years that requires the township to maintain the main thoroughfare of the village.
Just the main thoroughfare?
And what we've come up with is, rather than delineate what's a thoroughfare, what's not a thoroughfare, the agreement, and Mr. Walsh joined me in that meeting, that we had, Mr. Nunziato, Mr. Chernietsky, the agreement we had was we're going to set aside a certain dollar amount that the villages can then decide to use in whatever way they see fit as it relates to the paving of the roads. And if in fact there are some roads that are not potentially a main thoroughfare, but that's what the villages wants to pave, that's fine. We'll uphold our end of the bargain, which is to provide a certain dollar amount to have those roads paved and maintained. The difficulty we have in all candor, Freehold Borough is a great community. We've got close to 200 miles of road that Howell Township has to pave and maintain. In this past municipal budget, we earmarked $1.9 million for a road overlay, which got us about 20 miles of road. Actually, I think it's less than that. What was it, Mr. Nunziato? 14 miles of road. We put $1.9 million in the budget, and we got 14 miles of road because the town is so large. So the difficulty we have, and I don't want to mislead you, is that we don't have the financial wherewithal to cover every street the way we would like. But we've put aside in excess of $1.5 million almost every year for the past several years to increase what we're doing in terms of the roads. In terms of the villages, I don't know where we are, Mr. Chernietsky, on that agreement.
Mayor, just for the benefit of the public and those, the viewing public as well, when we say we're setting money aside, just to be clear, What happens is, what we're trying to work towards is an association agreement.
That's right.
And that's something we're required to do with all private associations. And that, the details of that, first of all, don't exist. But if they did, they would be a matter for council to be negotiating with the representatives of the villages, the officials of the villages. So that's a matter that has to be negotiated. I have received some correspondence from the, I think, the attorney from the villages indicating that in the coming weeks or perhaps a month or so, we'll be getting together for some preliminary discussions on what an agreement ought to look like. And we have a couple of hurdles to get through. But again, it's a negotiation item that council's going to have to work with the villages in, and we can't really do that in a public forum. And again, it's not that we're setting aside money as a gift, it's an obligation that we have to associations in our community.
Yeah, but right now, it's past a negotiation item. You have an ordinance that says you will maintain the roads in the villages. You've already taken care of one-third of all your paving. I would hope that the villages are in the next one-third. And,
Yeah, what I can tell you is one-third of the roads that were set aside this year. That's not one-third of all of the roads in the town. Each year, we come up with roads that are in the most dire condition off of a maintenance plan.
Yeah.
So I think Mr. Chernyatsky's comments are well-served. We have had formal discussions with the attorney on behalf of the villages, and we think we've had very positive, favorable exchange. We have to fulfill our obligation of what the town needs to do to maintain those roads, and we're working quickly toward making that happen. To give you any other sort of commitment absent what's going to come out of that discussion now might compromise that process.
I'm not looking for a commitment because the three trustees that are here tonight.
do a good job.
Will take care of that, and they're doing an excellent job, and they've been reelected. That's why they're here. But we have over 600 units. Everybody pays taxes here, and part of your tax bill includes road maintenance.
I think the one exception, though, is you're in a private homeowners association.
Yes.
And different from someone that lives in a general neighborhood that doesn't have an association.
Right.
There are some differences in terms of maintenance and what have you. And the town's obligation pursuant to this historic agreement that we've had, and it's rather dated, specifies the main thoroughfare. And we have a number of homeowner and condominium associations in the town that have similar specifics. And you can appreciate if we were to deviate from one and agree to go in and pave more roads than what the agreement may call for, we'd be overextending ourselves and maybe doing a disservice to people who don't live in those associations.
Again, you have to have a definition of main thoroughfare. How could I obtain a copy of that agreement from 20 years ago?
Sure, it's an open public record. Can we get, I have Mr. Crawford's, actually, I don't have your physical address. Maybe, if you wouldn't mind, jot it on a sheet of paper and pass it to the manager. We can send it to you. But what you're talking about is the very essence of what the village's attorneys and the town's attorneys are working on right now. So I think it's in good hands in terms of bringing that to closure.
Okay, because, like I said, we got too many potentially dangerous conditions.
We agree.
On these side streets. Okay. All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Okay.
Do we have any meetings scheduled with the villages in the next 60 to 90 days? Because I imagine someday in life, we got to put this to rest.
My last contact was a letter, and this is like going weeks ago, so a letter from the attorney for the villages indicating she'd be getting in touch with us once past this coming holiday. So
Okay.
I was relying on her schedule.
I think my understanding was we were waiting, I think, for the village's attorney, and it's not an easy topic. We had asked them to put together what they felt the agreement should look like. And then we wanted to, because that way we would make sure it included everything that was of concern. And then they were going to get that to us. So I know we've got some trustees here, Mr. Lariah and others. Perhaps, if you don't mind, you can take that message back to your council that really we're waiting on getting, I believe it was a young lady, we're waiting on getting her comments so we can bring this to closure.
And just, Mayor, just
Okay.
one last thought. The agreement with the villages predates the law that requires towns to enter into agreements with associations, municipal service agreements. So it's time to update it.
Well, it is time to resolve it. I mean, something has to be done just to, let's get this to be final. So it's done and over with. This has been going on for how many years now?
It's two sides, Mayor. Mayor, there's two sides.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we're waiting on getting something from your attorney, and you'll ask her to speed it up. Terrific. Okay, good, thank you. Go ahead, do you have something, Mr. Vasquez?
Yeah, I'm going to be, family obligations are for the holiday here that I have to take off, and I just want to wish everybody again, fellow council members, fellow council persons-elect, former officials over on the side, and all residents and people out here and out in TV land too. Have a great holiday, folks. I'll see you in a week at, right back here again.
Thanks, Mr. Vasquez. Have a nice holiday. Mr. Laraya, you're next, sir. Welcome, come on up.
Vince Laraya, 56C Villages.
Hello, Mr. Laraya.
I want to renew my appeal for traffic speed control measures. Now, in prior meetings at the council, we heard that there was all kinds of standards in use for determining how the speeds are set on our roads. Now, I'm going to ask a question, but I want to answer it myself. I mean, who sets the standards? Where do they live? From my understanding, these are national standards. One size doesn't fit all. Okay. When we assess what the speed requirements are on a roadway, the standards are this much, a little bit. They're a guideline. What our residents and what our visitors through the community do have to be determined by the people who live in the community. We don't want, for example, the mentality of a cornfield in Iowa compared to the congestion that we have in our community. I'm appealing to the board, the council, to pay very close attention to the requirements and the needs of the community, of the citizenry, in establishing the speed limits on our roads. I travel the Howell Road extension all the way out to Five Corners. And we make the transition from Howell into Colesneck. I immediately react to the signs that say this is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. Just this morning I was saying, why do I do that? Because I had heard 4 or 5 months ago that somebody from Howell was ticketed for going over the 35-mile-an-hour limit. So it works. You don't have to have constant surveillance. Just an occasional patrol to control. An occasional patrol to control the flow. Again, my appeal is heed what the citizens want. Use the standards as a guide, but they're not carved in stone. And thank you.
We agree. Thank you, Mr. LeRyan. Mr. Stan Horowitz. Mr. Horowitz, welcome. Nice to see you, Mr. Horowitz.
You too. Stan Horowitz, 25 Clare Circle in Howell. This is my third appearance here. Unfortunately, it's going to be for the same problem, and this time it happened in my front yard. This is the police report. These are the pictures. Would you like to see them?
Please, if you'd give them to Ms. Dalton, and she'll circulate them around.
I can only apologize, it's a little dark, but it did happen at 11:30. And also, you could change the date on that. I wrote down the 4th of November, and it's actually the 2nd of November. Car came around the turn on Addison, coming towards my house on the corner of Clare Circle at a high rate of speed. Lost control and did almost a 360, hitting the curb, taking out the undercarriage of the car. and landing in my front yard. This is my third time here. The only thing that's been done was a speed trap and sensors to see how fast people are traveling. I don't know what other proof I can give. This is out of control. The sensor claims that people were only going maybe as much as 10 miles over the speed limit, and that's not enough to cause a speed reduction. In the report, if you would like this copy as well, I have my own. On page, I believe, 2, the officer that was interviewing the driver the officer claims that the car was going at a high rate of speed, even though the driver claims that he was doing the speed limit, at which time when he was asked, didn't even know what the speed limit was.
What's the speed limit on the street? Is it 20?
35 miles an hour in a residential. Now, obviously, the speed was made many, many years ago. Times have changed. The two turns that come into and onto Addison, one from Aldridge and one from Fort Plains, are very sharp turns. On one end of the road, there is a speed limit reduction, 15 miles an hour just for the turn, because it's that sharp. That's on the northern end, southern end, I'm not sure which. On our end, there is no speed reduction to the turn. There's just an arrow that shows you the degree of the turn. The only thing you see when you come from Fort Plains onto Addison is 35 miles an hour. The impact that this car took onto my front lawn after the officer came to me, he said the car had to do at least 75 in his summation of the damage done. We're talking about ripping the undercarriage out from the car. There's the pictures. Now, I was here just for my neighbor who's had several cars, one come right through his front yard and out his driveway, and the others landing in his yard, but they were able to get out. Is it more important that it's my front yard? No, it's not. But the fact remains is that I can't let my child out in the front yard. Who do I have to go to? I think I have to go to you. All of you. Do I have to go anywhere else? Tell me.
Mr. Chernetsky, you gave me a signal. You're aware of this? You have something you're going to add?
Yes. As I indicated a few weeks ago, that Sergeant Markulik and Chief Carter will be here next week, and they will be delivering to council recommendations for various measures on a number of different roads and projects.
Is this one of the streets?
This is one of the streets. But I would say this, too. You know, we sort of have to catch up to our growth a little bit and kind of start scaling things. And what we really would like to see, and we're going to encourage council to adopt, is a neighborhood traffic management policy. We have a draft circulating among staff, and a presentation will also be delivered when Sergeant Markulik and Chief Carter are here next week, whereby we lay out phases of traffic calming. We lay out a process by which a neighborhood could request it. And again, it's in draft form, but it's sort of best practices we picked up from a number of different communities, larger ones, not small ones, but larger towns, so that residents don't feel compelled to come to a council meeting every time there's an accident or, you know, an incident in a neighborhood. And rightfully, they do that now because there isn't a policy or process in place to evaluate things. So I would just ask you to be patient for another week, and then you'll get our proposal.
That's not open to the public?
It'll be next week.
Absolutely.
That is open to the public?
In these chambers at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
8 o'clock.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
And we're sure that this, Mr. Horowitz's street
Yes.
is on the list.
Yes.
8 o'clock.
Okay. Are we going to get an advance copy for our review so we can come prepared in the event we have questions after we look at the material before Tuesday?
We're trying to develop a PowerPoint with, you know, aerials and that sort of stuff. I can get you just the text if you'd like.
I mean, me personally, it would be helpful to maybe see the text so that,
Sure.
in case we have any questions, we can review the material in advance.
Okay, given a holiday, your packet, I'll get it.
Mine only goes here.
I'll
I don't
email
come
it.
and get mine,
We'll
so
we'll
that's
email
fine.
it to council.
Mr. Horowitz, can you be here next Tuesday?
Definitely.
Okay.
See you then.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming out again. Thanks for your patience. Mr. Librio, welcome, sir.
John Librio, 35 Starlight Road.
Good evening, Mr. Librio.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Council-elect, and our professionals. First of all, I'd like to Mr. Tabasco left already, but I wanted to thank Mr. Tabasco for his public service to Howell, and also to Mr. Malave. Thank you. And congratulations for your re-election, Mr. Walsh, and your election, Councilman-elect.
Thank you.
And Mike, and the trustees from the villages. Okay, basically, I'm here because I was prompted to by what's going on in Jackson with developers and with home improvement contractors. It seems like you have all of those particular people, not all of them, so let me get that straight right now. There are particular developers and contractors who violate the code all the time when they're doing any type of construction. I unfortunately have had that experience here in Howell, okay? And because I'm intending to go to litigation, I will not reveal who the particular person is, the contractor that I dealt with, but I feel that a ordinance should be thought about as far as when you have a developer or a contractor in this town who violates a code on a particular job that they're doing, all other permits that they have in this town for any other construction should be stopped until they correct what they have violated on the particular project they're working on. Because, as Mr. Chernetsky said, we got to catch up with our growth in this town, and there's a lot of that going on as far as developing and people adding on with the home improvements and everything. And I think it's something that we should look into, because as I went to our professionals and asked, their hands are tied. They have no jurisdiction over stopping any permits being issued to a contractor or a developer that violates any of our building codes. So hopefully, we can get something going on some type of an ordinance, and I'm sure, we can, get the wording as to what should be put on there to put these people to task and and make them do what they're supposed to do, because it's our fellow Howell Township residents that are getting robbed for the hard-earned money that they spend to have these things built or improved on. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Librio. Mr. Chernetsky, can you look into Mr. Librio's comments? I think they're good remarks. If there's an open issue and there's problems with it before that person takes on something new,
Yes.
and you'll report back to us at the appropriate workshop meeting?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Librio. Mrs. Dixell,
Happy Thanksgiving.
same to you. Thank you. Welcome, Mrs. Dixell. That's it. Done. Yeah, I plan to. Good evening, Mrs. Dixell.
Hi,
Welcome.
good evening, everybody. Barbara Dixell, The Villages, Howell Township, Freehold, Howell Township, Monmouth County.
Barbara.
Happy holidays, everybody. Congratulations to Mr. Walsh, Ms. Dalton, Mr. Howell. Wish you well. Okay, several things. All right, Mr. Mayor and councilmen and professionals of Howell Township. I have been coming before this council and other councils for several years regarding the villages and the need for a fence to protect the villages from the rear yard setbacks that are over the buffer in the Lennar developments in back of us. I take exception, and I am outraged, that you had a meeting with Lennar, with the people in back of us about their water. I understand their water bills are $1,800 a quarter. Well, what the hell is the matter with the villages? We have been fighting, no, let me finish. What, you let me finish, because this is my time. I have been coming here begging and pleading for a fence. You people sent out letters for a fence. I've been asking for a meeting with Lennar. Now I want a meeting with Lennar. You people had a meeting with the other residents in back of us. What about us? We should have been invited to that meeting with Lennar. We should have been invited with, now I want a meeting with Lennar. I want the villages, I want Lennar called, I want the professionals to go out, I want a meeting with Lennar, and the Board of Trustees of the villages. I won that agreement, John Junko and I beat each other's brains out in December of 2000, at the final resolution of when that was passed, that I got them to give us a 4-season farm buffer, the entire length of the village's border. Well, that thing isn't there yet, but we do have, I'm sorry to yell at you, but I'm furious that I heard that you people had a meeting with residents in back of us and the villages wasn't included. We've been pleading. You've sent out letters to Lennar. We've been asking for a meeting. We've been asking for a fence, a privacy fence. Senator Singer also told you we're entitled to our quality of life in the villages. We bought our houses. We're entitled to a quality of life, and there was no reason why the rear yard setbacks of those homes had to go 2 to 5 feet into the buffer on 7 homes on Cuesto de Gomelez, 2 in Village 2. You know something? Something's got to be done, and I'm fuming. I want a meeting with Lennar. That's number 1. Number 2. The property, the HD1, block number 143, lots 23 and 24 on Route 9, that is between the villages and Dion's. Has anybody, from what I understand, the Planning, Zoning, Environmental Commission don't have anything from the applicant yet. I'm not sure it's being sold yet. My husband and I personally drove to the governor's office. We've delivered documents to everybody. Has anybody heard anything on this piece of property yet? So nobody seems to know. And can the Township of Howell, again, come out and want to buy it with Green Acres money or Township? The county seems to think that our Environmental Commission sent a letter to the county that we would be getting very high grades and very high marks if it were proposed to be bought with open space, Green Acres money. John Costigan was gracious enough to come to the villages. 2 trustees and I rode him around on the village's golf cart, and we went up and down because this property houses the Manasquan River. It goes absolutely through the villages. It goes under Route 9. It goes to Moore's Landing, where it meets Du Bois Creek and the Manasquan River. And the Manasquan River flows just between us, the villages, and Dion's.
Barbara, I received a call from someone saying they had an option to buy the land. They want to put a furniture store on
Yeah,
there.
furniture store.
Okay. That's a true statement.
They really want to go through with it?
I did receive a call
From the new owners?
from somebody who has an option on it to buy the property, and they want to...
Do you know if they filed an LOI yet?
I do not know that answer. Would you like me to call and find out that question?
Yeah, and where are they going, to planning or zoning?
I'm not that smart, Barbara.
Okay, because it's 13.67 acres, and I'll tell you why, Councilman Walsh, is if any part of that property, in the front of that property is sold, the trees cut down, the land regraded, I'm going to tell you now, I've told everybody, I've delivered it to the governor's office, the county, the senator, and everybody, someone's not going to have water. Somebody in this town is going to turn on a water faucet and have no water. Somebody's well is going to run dry. Something is going to happen.
I would recommend that potentially, if we know who the owner is, that maybe either Mr. Chernietsky or someone in an official capacity on behalf of the township reach out and do whatever it is in terms of inquiring on this. This is the first I've heard.
No, I've been here before.
No, that wasn't my point. About someone wants to build a furniture store,
Yeah.
what have you. That's not been made.
I've said that before.
I'm not privy to any of
Well,
those official...
I've said that to them, I've said it to them, it's 13.67 acres. I'm telling you something, if the land gets sold, if it gets clear cut, you know where this piece of property is. It's a pristine, mature, virgin, uncut forest between the villages and goes clear back to the township. It goes all the way back, it goes through the villages.
Yeah, I guess the only point I was about to make was that we might want to, if we know who the people are, maybe we should just have someone.
Abington is the surveyor.
Let me just try.
Abington and Brinkerhoff was out there last week doing something.
Let me just try and get this out. Can we find out if Mr. Walsh has who the contact people are, just so that we handle it officially on behalf of the township, and find out what their intentions are, and open up an official dialogue, because I don't think anything official has come to us, and if we're going to engage in a dialogue, it probably should be, I think, through the manager's office.
Just to make you aware, we've been in contact with the county open space program, so we've identified the owner.
Good.
They've reached out to the owner on a number of occasions. I'm not sure there's an interest on their part to sell, but I know, the county is calling every other week, making inquiries. They're just not being very responsive at this point.
Now, there's some,
Go ahead, Mrs. Dixon.
some two names that were mentioned, something about a guy named Schaefer and Franklin. We kind of, two trustees and I, the day we went to see Senator Singer on a number of things, including the fence and a whole bunch of other stuff, we came back and Abington was out in front of the property, and actually I went in the woods and dragged the guy out of the property and stood there and say, who are you, where are you, what do you want, what are you building, and what are you doing here? And we kind of wheedled it out of them, it's going to be like we don't need another big box store, and we do not need a furniture store or anything else where there's a piece of property that's going to have a 300-foot buffer, that's going to have the Manasquan River running through it, that's our potable drinking water.
Mrs. Dixon, I think we all agree with you, so I don't think there's...
No, because
we all
they have, Mr. Chernetsky and Helene, they have my set of documents. I have spent hundreds of dollars copying this.
You want to make a comment, Mr. Costigan?
Oh, please, John,
I'll
come
look
on.
to you, Mr. Costa.
Come on up, Mr. Costigan.
Absolutely.
All right, what else do you have after this?
A few things, one or two things.
One or two.
Okay.
Come on up, Mr.
Come on,
Costigan.
Only
That's
you.
fine, sir, go ahead. Just please introduce yourself.
I didn't know you, I'm glad you're here.
I was sleeping in the back, but you woke me up. John Costigan, 214 Birdsall Road. I got a call just today from the secretary of Andy Coyman, who's the park system person that Mr. Chernetsky was dealing with. She called me as a courtesy because I did follow up with a call to her when you and I last talked a few days ago. And she said, number one, they have been trying, just what Mr. Chernetsky was saying, they have been trying to reach the person. Evidently, the park system several years ago had also put in to the owners at that time, if they were the same people, I don't know, asking if they had appraisals at that time on that property. They wanted to negotiate also. As Mr. Chernetsky just said, they're not having a lot of luck. They are sending out, letters. The secretary who spoke to me today said that they would again Monday send out or reach out again. So I'm hoping there's something we can do on that. Probably they might consider reappraising the property, since the value may have changed up or down since last time it was appraised. I just want to let Mrs. Dixon know that as well.
Thank you. And also, I mentioned to Mr. Costigan, and I'll tell you people, it looks like they're making new paths through the forest. They're knocking down trees. If there's a way of us stopping them knocking down these trees, because they're going to do it like a little here and a little there, so they won't have to clear cut them, but they're kind of, even though like the winter is coming and the leaves are gone, and so it looks like they're they're going in there with vehicles and throwing down trees and making new paths, something where they're trying to do, just save themselves a lot of trouble from clear cutting, and they're just damaging this beautiful piece of land.
My opinion, if I may be so bold, is they probably have to get a permit from the engineering department someplace in the permitting area for that, for any trees that they knock down, and also show a schematic of which trees they're taking down. So if they have done that, that's something you might be able to find out tomorrow.
I don't know if they have, whatever, I don't know.
But if they haven't, then...
Mr. Chernetsky, can we ask code enforcement to go out
in compliance,
do a field inspection of the area to determine if we can get any visual ideas of what's happened?
I'm asking now.
Okay, and there's also a herd of deer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the one other thing I want to, OEM. Okay, regarding the safe haven for the village's clubhouse. Two of our board members were here a month ago. They were told that they couldn't do the safe haven in the clubhouse because they were told it had to be brick. I called Senator Singer's office. Personally told by Senator Singer, it's a Bubbermeister. In Jewish, a Bubbermeister is a lot of malarkey.
Well, I can tell you, he used the word butkus when I talked to him, but he indicated that we can certainly have the area qualified as an emergency zone.
Okay.
But it cannot be officially designated.
Ron Sanasak was going to get, supposedly, the law from New Jersey that says it has to be brick. I want to see where, because
Mrs. Dixell, let me just finish.
the clubhouses that Singer has are not brick.
Okay, let me finish. What Senator Singer said, because I wrote a letter, in fact, to Mr. Lariah, and I copied the council on it, saying we think it's a wonderful idea. The discussion that I had with Senator Singer was there are certain requirements around how the building needs to be structurally designed, brick being one of them. But that does not preclude us from naming it as a central area for people to come together in case of an emergency.
Fine.
It cannot be qualified under what OEM specifically clarifies as one of these zones. And so what we asked Mr. Sanasak to do was to put accommodations together so it can be a meeting place, if you will, or a support center, but it cannot be officially designated as one under the state law because it is not a brick-built building. And Senator Singer completely agreed with that.
Still want a copy of the law.
Okay, can we, Mr. Cherniatsky?
I was told I would get a copy, and I don't
Who
have
told
it.
you they were going to give it to you?
Mr. C?
Somebody said I was going to get a copy of this law, and I don't have it. And I want to see what Ron Sanasak is talking about, because Senator Singer's buildings, most of them are not brick, and they are safe havens. But I'm going to tell you something. We have a full working kitchen. We do have a lift. It's not a full elevator, but we do have a lift. God forbid there's an emergency. God forbid there's an outage. God forbid there's a hell of a snowstorm, and somebody needs help. We can maybe accommodate them in our clubhouse and help them, and maybe feed some people, because we, again, it may not, you say it can't be designated wholeheartedly, but at least we can try to help people, if they only let us.
Mrs. Dixon, that's what actually, my letter to Mr. Lariah actually suggested. Maybe you haven't got a copy. What it actually said was that the villages should proceed. They should have that area. They should work with OEM and put all of those things in place for all the reasons you mentioned.
Fine,
So
but
we're actually
I really want a
doing
copy of
that.
what Ron Sanasak is talking about. And the
Will you
road
get that,
comments
Mr.
I'll
Cherniatsky?
save until we have the meeting. But as far as Lennar goes, and there's Poly 1, why can't you close them down? Issue a stop work order? Why, if they have a plume that's moving toward potable drinking water, why can't you people close them down?
Mr. Gannon, do we have any?
Can't close them down.
So that's okay if they contaminate the water we're drinking?
Can't close them down. What they did is under the jurisdiction of the DEP, unfortunately.
Okay.
I just have a question, Mr. Nunziato. Have you been out to this area Mrs. Dixell talks about, where there's this encroachment? Have you been out there ever?
We talking about the fence?
The fence.
Please.
Yes.
You've been out there. And are there houses that are encroaching?
No.
No, the rear yard setbacks.
Are there
2 to
rear
5.
yard? Okay, hold on. Let me ask Mr. Nunziato. Are there rear yard setback issues where the rear yard setback is being violated?
The rear yard setback is an imaginary line on their survey. The rear yard setback in some lots is in the buffer. That does not mean there's any structures in the buffer, and that's the issue that's always been at hand in this case.
Okay. So do we have any enforcement responsibility? Can we do something? What does the law empower us to do?
We had performed several months ago, probably end of the summer, a door-to-door in this whole entire neighborhood where the setbacks and the buffers were in close proximity, whether they were 10 feet in, on the line, 10 feet over. We went through the whole entire neighborhood that abutted the villages. And we did find that there were 4 or 5 swing sets or accessory structures, trampoline, that type of thing, that were actually in the buffers. and we had asked the people to move them and to have their buffer staked out where they disagreed with us that they thought they were not. And that was done 2 or 3 months ago. At this time, I'm not aware of any that are in violation at this point.
Did we do any follow-up on the ones we asked to move their trampolines and
Yes, we
whatnot?
did.
Yeah,
They've all moved them?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, in your opinion, is there anything right now that is encroaching on these rear yard setbacks? And I'm not trying to be difficult, but a
No,
good
no.
yes or no would be helpful.
At this point, I'm not aware of any that are.
Okay. So maybe I'm misunderstanding what the issue is.
Mr. Chernetsky, I gave them Senator Singer's letter. Mr. Chernetsky sent the letter to Lennar. You've seen Senator Singer's letter, that we are entitled to our quality of life, and that we should be given a privacy fence. Okay, fine, that's all we're asking for. We have, and this is where we're gonna wind up having an anniversary of 5 years to go do this. What's the big deal? We came here 35 years ago. They came here, 5, 6 years ago, whatever. You know what? Give us a damn break. We want our quality of life. Just give us a privacy fence.
Well, I would say that since Senator Singer so graciously volunteered to be involved, that we should ask him to be at the meeting.
I want a meeting with Lennar and my board.
And maybe he can come and join us. Look, the people that were here for Lennar were today on the water sewer issue were completely different people that would be involved in this other issue. So one's really very, very different than the other. So can you arrange that meeting, Mr. Chernetsky, and find out which member of the council is available to go there during the daytime, and Mrs. Dixell should be there?
And members of my board.
Yeah, I think we should invite whoever the board designates, who they'd like to have in attendance from the villages as well. I think the request of the meeting is for them to build a privacy fence at their cost.
And just so that you know.
And didn't we make that request of them already?
We did.
And what did they say?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
They said no or nothing?
They didn't respond.
Yeah.
So they said nothing?
Correct.
I find it very upsetting that they came to a meeting today with the other people, and we're just getting.
Yeah, I
Sit
think,
by the
Mrs. Dixon,
roadside.
in all fairness, I think one is really not connected to the other. The issue with people paying $1,000 a quarter because of a mishap on Lennar's part, while we're sensitive to your issue, we have people who have a real hardship. And so that really needed to take a major priority, and the council unanimously agreed we needed to have that meeting urgent.
And one more thing Mr. Nunziata did with Lennar. He sent a letter to the lawyer saying that, he would suggest a post and rail fence, and I have a copy of that letter. Nowhere did it come from me, nowhere did it come from my board, it came out of his head. Didn't bother asking us, and I'm going to tell you, like I told him, Mr. Nunziata, you work for the people of Howell Township, you don't work for the builders. And I don't care. That did not come from me, did not come from my board, it came out from a suggestion from him. I won't, sorry, post a rail fence, what, give us a privacy fence. Post a rail fence, the kids can hop over it, throw baseballs through it, climb over it. I want a privacy fence. And Senator Singer said the same thing. That letter came from him, he wants it, you pay for it, you build it. I don't want to know about it.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixell.
Thank you very much, but please, I want a meeting.
We know.
Okay,
think
well,
we
you'll know a lot more.
Mrs. Dixell, you want a meeting?
I want a meeting. I want a meeting with Lenore.
Let's get after that meeting.
Okay. Is there any other, you have anything, Mr. Chernetsky, now that we're done with the public portion?
Mayor, just the 2 items you asked me to follow up on.
Okay. Go ahead.
With respect to the rescue squad, we received an itemized list of potential capital items in lieu of a previous bond that council authorized for a pole barn. That request was forwarded to Mr. Filiatro. What he has to do is compare the useful life of the items on the list. First, make sure that they qualify, and then once we do our analysis, council's going to have to amend the bond ordinance in order to access those funds. So we're in the process of doing that analysis.
Do we have an anticipated close date on when he'll have completed that?
Again, with the rapid coming of the end of the legislative year, we probably aren't looking until sometime in January before we can deal with that.
we wouldn't be able to deal with it in terms of an action until January, but will
ordinance.
he have finished his?
Oh, yes, yes.
So you would say before the end of the year, we'll have it, and the council will be able to act on it in the first part of January?
Right. We'll have the CFO's analysis before the end of the year.
All right, the related issue to that, and I don't know when we have to deal with it, but we have talked about which company needs to get the ambulance next. And I've had discussions with Mr. Sanasak from the Howell Farmingdale Squad, who does a phenomenal job, and discussions specifically with the Howell Squad on Kent Road. And I really think we need to revisit how we are going to distribute ambulances going forward, because we've historically done it on sort of a rotation. One year it's one company, the next year it's the next company, and the problem we're having is that the squad on Kent Road, purely based on statistics of calls, is covering virtually 75% of all of the calls, particularly the villages, which is actually in the Howell Farmingdale area. And I just think in fairness, we need to look at usage and miles and wear and tear on the vehicles, rather than what has historically, I'm sure it's been done for good cause, but year one it's this company, and year two it's this company. We really need to distribute these vehicles based on where the call volume is being handled from. And I don't know when the appropriate time to review it. I know the ambulance has been ordered, but I really think we have to get some statistics so that the council, whether it's this year or next year, can look at, here's the number of calls, here's the number of calls acted on by squad, so that when we decide who gets this next ambulance that's been ordered, we can do it based on the squad that has the most need. And I know this is not it's not a popular issue to say that one squad should get it over another. It's got nothing to do with who should get it. We need to make the decision based on facts. And I'm open to anyone's comments on it. I'm concerned that we've got one company who is, by whatever the reasons, is handling a lot of the calls, and I don't think they're necessarily complaining about it. But when we look at the wear and tear, we've got to make sure that we're giving them the right resources and equipment to respond to those calls.
Well, not having delved into the details of it, I would just say that my understanding was that the standing policy was to rotate every
That's right.
year who gets a new ambulance.
That's right.
If council is interested in changing policy and gives me the direction to come up with some recommendations for alternative policies, I'd be happy to provide some metrics as to what's needed. What are the standard metrics for measuring performance of ambulances per population, per square miles? And at the other end, too, there's also a minimum requirement to keep a volunteer company functional and certified.
Well, I would say the Howell Farmingdale Squad does an outstanding job. They're second to none. But when you look at who's responding to calls, maybe it's they've got more people available during the daytime, in the evening, and when you look at some of the call volumes, we have one squad covering and Ramtown does a phenomenal job as well. But when you look at the majority of the calls that are being covered, at least in the Howell Farmingdale area and the Kent Road area, most of the calls are being handled by the squad on Kent Road. And so I don't know that we're in a position to ask to make that change without the facts. So what I would like the council to get is maybe for the past 12 or 24 months, even the past 12 months, all of the calls that have come in each of the squads, and based on who actually got the call and who then responded to the call, so that we can make fact-based decisions without any preference for which squad. Let's just make a decision based on need and resources. So maybe the first step is to get that call data. You and I have talked about this offline, and my suspicion is it's got to be available through the communication center when those calls come in. Someone says, I'm in Candlewood, we've got a 911, I have to imagine that goes somewhere, and then the squad that responds to the call. And maybe that's the first step, just to see the results.
Sure.
I personally, I would like to sit down with the heads of the different EMTs in Howell Township. I mean, my mother-in-law and father-in-law have been president-in-chief of Wayne's EMTs for the last 10 to 12 years. And it's a complicated issue. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to find the volunteers. I saw Manalapan just shut down, I believe, one of its volunteer EMTs because they didn't have enough volunteers during the day. It's becoming more and more difficult. So I would like to hear the pros and cons. I don't know if it's exactly just a number in all instances.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is that coming into the next capital budget, council wants to evaluate the policy as to how it distributes ambulances.
Well, I think for two things, at least from my perspective, we have one we've ordered now.
Right.
And the specs of ambulances from Ramtown to Howell, Farmingdale to the squad on Kent Road, they've got to be the same. So we've ordered an ambulance to support the town. I think we have to look at, when that arrives and it's road-ready, where does it go? I also agree, and I've independently had conversations with all of the squads, and I've recommended to them that they come together independent and have a meeting among the 3 independent squads collectively, and that they then come to us, and we have a sit-down with all 3 of them about a way to determine how we can best share their collective resources.
I think that's the best approach, is to ask them to come up with a policy.
And I know we've got Captain DiMatteo here, and I know you want to be recognized. We'll call you up. And Mr. Sanasak was also most professional and very receptive to having a sit-down with the other 2 squads. Captain DiMatteo has said to me outside these chambers, they'd be happy to sit down, and I've asked him to talk to the people at both he and Mr. Sanasak, to talk to the people at Ramtown, so the 3 of them, since they're separate autonomous entities, have some good dialogue, and then come to us about how we could be a resource. But I think, the only thing I want to bring up before that is, we have this ambulance that's going to be here soon. We need to decide where should it go.
Okay.
That's really my biggest concern.
And I think what the policy that you're going to be looking at, I think, is a great idea, to ask them to come up with it, to talk about what resources they have, analyze calls. Maybe some older ambulances from the busier departments can be retired into some of the not as busy departments. Maybe we can come up with a comprehensive approach that rises up from the volunteer squads, and maybe what I'll do is arrange that meeting quickly.
The ambulance that is coming, did we already make a decision on that? On where it goes? There is no ambulance coming, Captain?
I thought we had in the capital budget, didn't we talk about for this? Come on up, Captain DiMatteo. Didn't we talk about the next one was supposed to go to Howell Farmingdale?
Yeah, it was in the capital budget.
Never even spec'd out yet by either squad.
It has not been spec'd out. Would you just introduce yourself, Captain?
Captain Jeff DiMatteo from Howell First Aid.
Thanks, Captain.
Some of the issue here is also, in 2002, in February of 2002, we received our ambulance. In May of 2002, Farmingdale received our ambulance. So they had the last ambulance. Whether or not it was ordered before ours, I don't know. But they received it last. Today, Ramtown received a brand-new ambulance. It just came in today to Public Works.
Did it?
Yeah, that's the one you were probably talking about. But
The other one wasn't ordered.
the other one was not ordered, was not even spec'd out by either squad.
It's in the budget, it
It's
just
in the
hasn't been
budget.
spec'd out, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
And you're looking at, I gave all the documentation to Councilman Malave. We're answering between 24 and 2,500 calls a year. The other squads are answering 500 to 700 calls a year.
God bless you.
There's a big difference here. We have 59 members, actively riding members, that come by our building any time of the night or day. There's 10, 12 people there. The other squads have 10 to 12 members. It's a big difference here. If other squads have 3 or 4 ambulances and they have 12 members, do they have enough members to drive a new ambulance? We're sitting there right now, we get motor vehicle accidents with multiple patients. We don't have enough ambulances sitting there. Right now, we have 1 at Town Garage, we have 2 left back at the building.
Yeah, I mean, this is the point, Mr. Trunetsky. I mean, I think we're in a crisis stage with equipment at the Kent Road squad, and if it hasn't been spec'd out yet, we have it in the budget, so it's got to get spec'd out. So whoever does that needs to get on it, but we have to immediately re-review the distribution of who should get the equipment. If you got somebody covering 2,500 calls, and the next squad, which does a great job, is doing 500 calls, we have a problem on our hands.
And we needed a new rescue truck. Our old one was a 1987 van that carried all our extrication tools. We bought a rescue truck out of our money, we took a loan, bought it off of eBay. Traveled to Virginia, we got the truck. We just purchased, within 2 years ago, 2 first responders off of eBay that were buying used vehicles. I mean, we can't afford, in 2002, we spent $90,000. We bought an ambulance, we took a loan out for that. We can't afford right now to go buy another one.
Yeah, does the council agree? I mean, we've got to get these facts, and we've got to make a decision quickly about who's going to get this next ambulance. Does anyone have a problem with that?
I want to, like I said, I want to sit with the heads of all the first aids. I mean, I want more than just numbers.
So
I want to hear the pros and the cons Okay, I don't want to see another first aid department go down.
Well, let me
I
just...
want to hear from the people.
Let me just
okay?
put it in
I
a
don't wanna-
procedural context here. First of all, the council approved a capital budget, and a capital budget specified that there's an ambulance for a specific squad. So
Where's it supposed to go?
I'm going to need policy
California.
direction to change that, okay?
Well, I
And
believe that
think-
was an error when that went in. Because like I'm saying, Farmingdale received, if you look at the registration on these vehicles, when they were registered through the state of New Jersey, they received the ambulance last.
Okay, it may have been an error, but there were like 4 budget presentations where it said Farmingdale.
Can we do this
For-
much? Can
for
we go
months
back
with
and
this.
check? We're not going to fix this here. Can we go back and check and get the list of the last 5 or 6 ambulances, who's actually gotten them, and who's in the queue? And I also think, while it makes all the sense in the world to me with the squads, the sense I got from all of them independently was they want to have a meeting among the 3 of them first to discuss the issues that they want to talk about before they come to us. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but that was the impression I got, at least from Mr. Sanisak and at least from yourself, that there are some things among the 3 of you that you need to have a conversation about. And then we can be a resource to you after at least the 3 of you guys have had that meeting. Does that make sense?
I'll agree with that.
In the meantime, we'll hold off on developing, sending anything out to bid under the current capital
Well,
budget.
but let me ask you, though, I mean, is there a difference? If you need an ambulance, it's
Yeah.
different than if
Each squad specs them
Ramton...
out differently for different members. Like Farmingdale just bought a crew cab truck that has 4 doors on it, that the truck's 26 feet long. We wouldn't want something like that. We want a regular, smaller type ambulance. You know, different squads want different things for different
Well,
reasons.
just one observation, and I don't know your guys' business. I think maybe one of the things when the 3 of you guys get together you should talk about are just some standards around an ambulance, so that when we need to move one ambulance and retire it from a busy place to a not-so-busy place, that we're all using the same equipment. I would venture to guess that a police car in Howell Township, for the most part, has a lot of the same, if not identical, equipment to a police car in another township. And a fire truck, with the exception of someone that needs a specific pumper, maybe that's one of the things you guys can talk about, because I
The
think...
problem is when these ambulances are getting retired, they're getting retired by the town garage because they're unsafe to drive.
Yep.
And they're being sold. They're not being given to another squad in the township.
How quickly can you and the other 2 squads have this meeting that's been talked about?
I could sit down with them whenever they're available. I mean, I could do it pretty quick.
I would
As long
like
as
to
they're
sit
available.
there, I would like to sit in on that if possible.
That'd be great.
All right, so you're gonna try and pull this together. You guys are gonna air out some of the stuff that you've all indicated you want to work out,
Yeah, I
and
think
then
the
come
3
back
of us
to
should
us.
sit down. We should have all our information in front of us and bring it to the council. The amount of calls, the amount of members that each squad has, and I mean, you got to realize, if you have a squad that has 59 members and a squad that has, say, 15 members, you're buying radios, pagers, equipment and everything for 59 versus 15. The money's going out. We can't afford to go out and buy the things that the other squads can go out and buy. One of the other squads bought 2 brand-new first responders, brand new, Ford Expeditions or Explorers, whatever they were. You know, they're brand new. We're resorting to eBay paying $7,000 for a first responder when they're spending $25,000 on first responders. I mean, you got to look at it that way. And there's a lot of things that could be brought out.
All right, you'll get together, get the other 2 squads together. Mr. Chernetsky, you'll begin to collect the list of the last several distribution of ambulances, and I do think we need some factual data about call distribution if we're going to revisit the policy.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Captain DiMatteo. What else did we have, Mr. Chernetsky?
That's all I had.
When are we going to,
Oh,
in
I'm
terms
sorry.
of the professionals, I know they've all been advertised.
Yes.
When did you have it set up for us to go through and open up all the boxes and the materials?
Well, we'll be opening up the boxes on the 27th, I believe, at noon, right? Colleen? That's,
Is there any
yeah.
chance of us putting that date back? Because going down to League of Municipalities last week, I was asked certain questions by people, and I said, I don't think, was it advertised on the league's website?
On the league's website?
Yes.
I don't believe it was.
Any particular reason why now? Is it not common practice? Is it common practice?
We don't typically do that for RFPs.
We don't, or most towns don't, or all towns don't, or?
I would say most towns don't. It's expensive to advertise on the league website.
You got to pay for that.
Yeah.
Where did we advertise?
In the official publications of the town.
There's not a link that can be set up with the league?
Pardon me?
There's not a link that can be set up to our website with,
There is. There is. If you go to the league, you go to the municipal websites, you go to Howell Township, and it will take you to our website. They list all the municipal websites on the league.
So there's already a link there to get to Howell?
Yes.
That if somebody wanted to find out about us, they could go there and click to Howell Township?
Yes.
I would like to know how much it costs to put it on. I'd like to know if the date could be extended past November 27th.
I will have to get back to you on that, so I can get you.
Well, November 27th is when?
Monday.
I have to talk to the purchasing office. I don't think we can.
Why? Is it not a policy decision? I mean, if the township's going to search for the best possible people at the most affordable price to the citizens of Howell Township.
You can always decide you want to go back out and re-advertise for a particular position. You're not obligated to award a contract to any of the professionals who submitted on that date. And you, as a policy decision, can decide to go back out.
I'd like to know if Mayor and Councilman Lava, you have any objection to putting the date back past November 27th for at least another week?
I have no problem, I just want to see what it's going to cost to advertise on the league's website. I mean, if we're in a cost-cutting mode and looking to save, I'm concerned about what the expenses are going to be.
Councilman Lava?
I have no problem with it.
Yeah, we did do a public notice that we would be receiving and opening these. Tom, do you have any insight into this?
The only thing I recall was there was something in the ordinance that the purchasing agent has to go out to a certain period of time between when they have to receive the bids.
Yeah, I guess part of my concern is...
So I don't know, we may be bound by
A little
ordinance.
extra time to look into this than being asked now with the opening on Monday.
Yeah, I didn't, I've been getting some phone calls after going to the league last Wednesday and Thursday morning. That's the only time I was there, or Tuesday and Wednesday morning. I've been getting some calls saying, we'd like to put a package together and send it in. So I'll speak to the manager about it. I thought he was the place to bring it up. So I waited until the first meeting.
Okay, I understand.
Am I allowed to speak?
Go ahead,
I can
Ms.
speak,
Thorne.
right? I think for the purposes of the members that are, of the public that are here and those who are watching on TV, we ought to explain a little bit about what the League of Municipalities is. I just think perhaps somebody could just say it rather quickly.
Sure. The League is an association of municipalities. I believe it's the oldest in the country. It runs an annual conference where, and I think one of the greatest values of their, well, they have seminars throughout the year. They do lobbying on behalf of municipalities, and they put on a huge conference where people actually come from other states and other countries as well to see this. But one of the benefits is they take up the whole convention floor with vendors of all different sorts selling trucks to professional services. So it's a networking opportunity. And our department heads, division heads, council members, planning board members are all offered an opportunity to go down for a day or two without overnight accommodations, of course, are on their own, but we pay for the entrance fees.
And that's an opportunity where networking occurs and where professionals throughout the state gather together and people
Correct.
meet one another. And I think the sense I'm getting from Councilman Walsh is that there aren't enough professionals out there, from what he met in Atlantic City last week, who know that we are advertising for positions. And he's concerned that we're not going to get very many applicants by next Monday.
Well, I will tell you, I did this last year. I did this for a living for a little while. I worked for a planning engineering firm, and one of my jobs was to get proposals into towns. And I would learn about proposals, a day or two before they were due. And if we were really interested, we'd work on them and we'd get them to the town hand-delivered by noon. So if you met someone last week and told them about it, if they're really interested, I think they'll get something in. So perhaps what I might recommend is see what comes in, and if you feel you don't have enough applicants, you're not obligated to award the contract. You can wait.
I've learned in 9 short months with you, sir, you're a lot thorough than a lot of most people I've met in my life, okay?
Oh, thank you.
So, I would like to see the date extended.
Well, I'm not sure we can do that, but I'll tell you tomorrow. If we could, is that the preference of the council to do so?
I guess the only other, we could do that right now?
No, if we could, if
we could, we can't do it tonight.
I'm interested in the opinion of the council, whether they'd like to do that if we could.
I have no objection to it. The only thing I'll add is, the company that I work for bids on public business all the time, and we subscribe to a service, and typically 4 out of 5 days a week, we get a listing of every public bid that comes available in every municipality in all 21 counties. There are various services, and most companies subscribe to them, so when something becomes available and it appears in any of the newspapers, there are services that grab and filter that, and they get distributed to companies that buy that subscription. Because we've gotten bids, last year, we got bids from firms all over New Jersey that we had never heard of, which was wonderful, because for the first time, we passed a law that required them to be advertised. So are you saying tonight we could give you direction to extend it? Or are you saying we can't do that tonight?
I think what he's saying is, what I said was the ordinance had a specific date in there, if I recall, between the receipt of bids and when the award was, so certainly if you want to do it, you can tell them to do it, but you can't do it if the ordinance, if we've already gone past the date.
Why don't you look at it tomorrow, Mr. Chernetsky, make a phone call, poll everybody individually, including the new council members, and go from there.
We'll do that.
Great. Is there anything else you have for us?
No. Do you have anything else for me?
Is there?
What is that? Oh, we have two resolutions?
Yeah, I saw those in the packet. All right, do we need to go into regular session to act on those? All right, I'd ask for a motion to go into regular session, please.
So move, Mayor.
We need a second, please.
Second.
All right, roll call to go into regular session, please.
Mr. Mulliver?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Call the council's attention to R06-480 resolution. This was in our packet tonight. Resolution of the Township Council awarding professional service contract to Johnson Realty for the appraisal of Township Property Block 233, Lot 23, Collingswood Motel, for a sum not to exceed, $2,850. Mr. Chernetsky, would you give us the overview, please?
Mayor, the town acquired this land through tax sale, foreclosure, and we are trying to determine a fair market value to consider selling the property.
And why are we going with Johnson Realty?
Work was previously done, and so it would really be a matter of updating the appraisal, so it would give us a much better price.
No, I'm saying, how did we select Johnson Realty to do this work versus Joe Jones Realty?
They had done it previously, but so they have a lot of the preliminary research on it.
On this property?
Yes.
It's your recommendation that we appoint Johnson Realty?
Yes, sir.
And it looks like there were two companies that bid. This is $2,850, the other is Martin for $5,000.
Right.
So this is
they
the
were
low
also
bid.
the lower bid, yes.
So this is the low bid.
But we're recommending them because they're familiar
Okay.
with the property.
Ask for a motion and a second to open discussion. Someone going to make a motion and a second?
So move, Mayor.
We need a second.
Second.
Under remarks, any comments on this resolution?
I'd just like to ask, they've done work on this property in the past, and that's why they have all this data?
Yes. Yes.
Long time ago, recently?
I think 2 years ago.
Any
Good
other
enough.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good enough for me.
Any other comments? Mr. Malabi?
No, sir.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mulliver?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. The next is R0641, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Howell awarding professional service contract to forestry consultants for community forestry management for $3,000. Mr. Chinesky, what is this all about?
This is associated with the grant, and I'll ask the deputy manager's been working on our grant, so I'll ask her to explain this.
Mr. Schlegel, go ahead.
There was a $3,000 grant awarded to the Shade Tree Commission in order to form a forestry management plan. And this is just awarding that contract. It needs to be awarded and the plan needs to be completed, I believe, by the middle or third week in December.
And this is to this company called Forestry Consultants. How did we find this firm?
Shade Tree has worked with this firm in the past, and because of the time frame that it needs to be done prior to, like I said, I believe I don't have it in front of me, but either December 15th or the 21st, it needs to be completed, so.
Is there any reason why we shouldn't have put this out to bid, or did they put it out to bid?
No, they didn't. This one was waived.
We're comfortable with this?
Yes, I am, very.
All right, ask for a motion and a second open discussion, please.
So moved, Mayor.
All right, we have a second, motion and a second. Under remarks, any comments or remarks? Mr. Malave?
No, sir.
Mr. Walsh?
No, sir.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malave?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Anything else, Mr. Chinesky? No, sir. Happy Thanksgiving to the community. May God bless Howell Township on this wonderful holiday.
Absolutely.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mayor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion, meeting adjourned.